Thank you so much for the introduction, Upasana. Yes, this truly is a new way of conducting conferences and events, and I think Tai is doing a great job at that. So, hello everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, digitally though, and thanks for organizing this Tai, and special thanks to Nitin and Gitika for all the effort, and thanks Nitin for all the coordination that you've been doing all these days. So, having said that, as you know, the topic today is pivot and persist. And as you have a fair idea, we'll be discussing how we pivoted a product during a crisis, none other than a literal black swan event in this case, and a few perks and perils of being a woman entrepreneur. So, moving on to the first slide. I'd like to quote here Reid Hoffman, who's the co-founder for LinkedIn. He very famously states that entrepreneurship is like a journey that starts with jumping off the cliff and assembling an airplane on the way down. It's just that when you're a woman, the cliff appears steeper and fall a little quicker than you would prefer it to be. In terms of the short session, I've divided into two parts, the business and the gender. So coming on to the first part of the session, that is the business part. The business is, as you can see, our initial product was goparties.com, which, as the name gives away, it was in the space of events with a major offline aspect to the business. And although I was keeping a tab on the COVID situation globally, as we all know, it was March 2020 when it hit the ground level reality in India as a country. And events as a market and space was primarily a winner as a business to be hit by the virus. And since we as a team were quite aware of the global scenario, somewhere in the back of our minds, we did have the thought that, our business, considering it had a decent offline leg to it, would be hit by this black swan event as such, which it literally did, and we overnight had to find a solution. And as they say, when you face the wall, you can either choose to stop or turn back and kick harder. We literally went with the latter option, and we chose to pivot to an online business, a fully online business in terms of boxingage.com, which is a video streaming platform housing various experiences, and wherein you can format your content in various video forms, such as live, recorded, short form, long forms of video, and you can host experiences. And in fact, the ban of the Chinese app ban surged our traffic 10x, which again worked in our favor on the whole. But having said that, when you and as you can see here, I mentioned Frontier Tech Impact Venture Builder Fund had a huge role in helping us pivot in terms of being the entity wherein we got the capital to pivot and to sustain. I also had the opportunity to co-found this with my co-founder Varun and Ramninder, and we house other products as well. Since, as Upasana mentioned, there are entities that are homegrown from scratch. One of the other being audionews.com, which is in the space of media. But I will not be discussing it here. So going forward, as you pivot, you really don't know how it is going to be because you're entering a new market, a new normal in this case, and no one really knows how things would land when you pivot. But there was a very crucial decision that one needs to make. Every event will not be a black swan event as such. There are crises that keep coming and going in business, which is quite natural to the nature of the animal that you're dealing with here. So you need to understand, and you need to really keep in mind that whether your will for survival and being in business is more, or your love for the idea of business in your mind, or your business idea is more. For survival, it is quite binary. You will have to have the will for survival and being in business way, way, way greater than your love for idea of what a business should be or a business idea, because you never know how markets change, how markets perceive, how even sometimes a product that's fit in the market might just go out of business, if not overnight, few more nights than one night. So you need to have, in essence, the slide is important from the aspect that you need to understand why you get into business is for the business, and everything follows after that. And sometimes, obviously, the will has to supersede everything that's there. So moving on, technically there is an important key to survival. I just listed on three main pointers here. First would be to ideally have a capital run of 18 months, which may or may not be the case. Most of the time it's not in a startup. So in this case, you need to be open to any form of capital, not necessarily VC capital. Consider friends, family, or debt options. Contemplate the need and state of picking up VC capital, since it comes with a lot of terms and aggressive growth needs, as it comes with a lot of hope value to it. And when in our case, what worked was or just think of out of box solutions. Like in our case, we got onto building Frontier Tech Impact Venture Builder Fund, which provided us the capital for the pivot and the survival. And this was quite an out of box solution because FTI as a builder fund houses entities and grows them from scratch. So it kind of really worked in our favor. But then again, if you decide to survive, you find solutions basically. And then the other thing is growth and market. You need to see whether your product is in the right market fit when the crisis is on and even after the crisis is over. In this case, which we can even tout as the new normal. Your product should be uh, viable and sustainable in the new normal that is to come. And team is always a very important aspect of any business. You need to have a core team intact. You can build a list of a can do or cannot do list of essential people that you would want on your team and probably proceed doing that. So in terms of the business, I guess sustaining after the pivot is as important as pivoting, and to have your product be a good fit in the new normal is equally as important. So all of these are, I tout them as equally important things in all cases. Moving on, we move on to the second aspect of the presentation, that is the perks and perils of gender in business. As much as we talk about it in our minds, we seldom say it aloud. So I've taken the opportunity to include this as well after considering it's an important part of the pivot. And so in terms of business, if there are two things that an entrepreneurship doesn't have, that's gender and empathy. And if there is one thing that founders get way more than empathy, as much as they would like it, there is almost none. There is the gender bias or the gender feelers that come your way, which you may or may not want them, but they clearly come in various forms. Sometimes to the extent that you wish that capital was available in so many forms, of such as society, family, friends, sometimes even institutionalized investors for that matter. So coming on to the perks of being a woman in business, women as such are, at least I feel so, are quite natural at few things, and it's these natural traits that can come of great value to a woman when she is in business, such as I've just taken the liberty to list a few here. Women are natural at having a higher emotional quotient, which we assume is probably a bad thing and a sixth sense, but it is not. In fact, it has a big value. In addition to managing, multiple stakeholders and on day-to-day tasks, these just make the running of a team more empathetic, and it just makes the environment more congenial, if I can say so. And as we all know, multitasking abilities of women are proven to be way higher, and they're naturally wired to handle an array of tasks at a point of time, which is a great value addition when you're doing a 0 to 1 stage of business. As it's very famously said, if you really want to get something done, give it to a busy mother, because you just have the job done with no frills. So that's kind of a nice thing when you're in business. So the Another point is to be good at business development. Women are naturally good at conversations, good at ice breaking, and hence helps in business development. As even at Shady, who's got a whole network around this, she knows, which is I think a fab network she's made. And there's another thing that we don't talk about much. That's the negotiation power of women, which is quite understated. I feel women are quite natural again at being good negotiators because they've probably it's not talked about enough, but they've subconsciously learned it at a very early stage, probably from their mothers. But again, they are good negotiators as well. So coming on to the perils of women in business. This slide, as you can see, is basically a crux of all the main obstacles based on various studies from the Indian, US, Japan, and European markets as a crux that the impact of gender stereotypes, which generate gender biases and discrimination, whether women are considered to be whether women are they really like risk takers, are they less confident, are women really ambitious? There are questions on their ambition and their competitiveness. In my opinion, I feel all of them are boiled down to just three factors, which are surrounding a woman who decides to get into business or start her own thing, which I call as the three F's of the perils of women in business. Clearly, I've come up with this as a part of my journey till now, and these are family, financing, and friends and society. I'll just take to these points one by one. The first is family as a whole is a very concerning obstacle because if not a support system, this can be the single point of reason of a woman not doing well in business or maybe not starting at all per se. And this can come in any form: your parents, your partner, your children, in any form. And mostly they mean well, but this is highly subjective and ambitions are involved. I mean, definitions change. So when we as women can turn a blind eye to all these points, what we can do is to accept them and create a viable option around a solution, which primarily means ignoring most of it and just doing your work. The guilt will be omnipresent. Nobody really talks about it, but the guilt of a woman in business, like she has a guilt, like she's doing this. There's a guilt that's present, which I believe would never go because no matter what stage of life you're in, single, married, bearing kids, rearing kids, raising kids, or a combination of any of these, all of these, the guilt will be omnipresent. It never goes. If it goes, I think that's what Nirvana would be all about. So the idea is to follow your dreams with minimum guilt and to build a strong network around you of like-minded people that will help you understand and help each other face the challenges in a more positive and a forward-looking way. The irony of the situation is that business is a gender-neutral platform. However, the market standards and the way it's been curated is mostly by men these days because of how the talent has been growing bottoms down with most men, and obviously those have been in the leadership positions. But however, it's becoming difficult to sustain that because of the large pool of talent of women being available in terms of entrepreneurs or CXOs or other leadership positions. So things are changing slowly, and probably it should be changing a little faster from here. Is my understanding. You know, uh, like Nitin told me to quote some personal anecdotes here, so I'll take the liberty. So, like when I decided to start my own business and I decided to quit my job, mm, the question my family was, why would you do something like that? And why would you quit a good job? And then the second question was, what about marriage? And although the question still remains hanging, but in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't wait and we carried on with my karma because having the support of family really matters and it does make a difference. So it's better to move on and probably they'll get convinced on the way. Should they still not be uh, convinced? Like one of my friend's mom, when she said that she's gonna quit her job to start her business, her mom literally hung the phone on her, and I believe in her spirit she took that as an okay. I'm glad she did. And What I'm trying to say here is that we cannot ignore the balance of personal life while building a business, but we need to create an ecosystem wherein we get to make the best of both worlds and the best of our natural abilities and our acquired knowledge and the will to succeed. Um, Coming to the second point is financing. As a woman in business, you will be met with a single question: will you be able to handle the capital I invest in you? It's not that men don't have to, it's also women who have to. So when we pivoted, we were also faced with the same questions. We had investors and we had to convince everyone. And it was nice to have people who were understanding, but having a male co-founder in my case helped. But if you're a sole female founder, in that case, you might face a lot more challenges. It gets better if there are 2 to 3 female founders, but yeah, there are certain challenges as a sole female founder. Although there are people in the ecosystem who move on merit and, in fact, are quite supportive of women entrepreneurship, such as Ms. Mani Kola of Kalari, and then there's none other than Mr. Rajan Anandan himself, who's a very staunch supporter of women in business from whenever I've seen this ecosystem being built. And it is people like him who've been doing their bit in going forward with more women in leadership positions, and things are bound to change going forward. The third aspect is friends in society. The lesser we talk of it, the better, because the more you pay attention, the larger the FOMO gets. FOMO, in case you don't know, is fear of missing out, which is a millennial term of being left out, which basically means, oh my God, what am I doing? I don't know about other folks, but people in business need to understand that we are running our own race at our own pace. It is not a very rosy path, it is a difficult path, and count that in when you're weighing yourself on any sort of a scale. It's not easy to walk this path. So give yourself that benefit that probably the society may or may not be able to give you due to lack of understanding or whatever. Coming down to the conclusion slide, the best way is to sing the perils and perks of a situation and of being a woman entrepreneur. And this is what we did while we pivoted as well. We asked ourselves tough questions. We asked ourselves the courage of conviction to move forward in a new normal and whether the product would fit or not. And as a woman entrepreneur, you need to use the unnecessary hurdles from society, family and friends as a bouncing board to again reassess your conviction to move forward. In fact, I feel that as a woman, the courage of conviction probably is tested every week, considering the amount of questions that are thrown to her, mostly from herself to her own thought that why is she doing this? Should she do this? Should she continue it? The weighing and the checks and balances. So yeah, so that's it. You must be, especially the woman, I'm sure you're truly convinced to be in it because you've already been asked enough questions. Why are you doing this and all that? So that's it. And it's the best idea here is to persist, because if you do, then people around you will also understand and appreciate it. And plus, I say that things are changing and they're changing quite fast. And I very strongly believe that as an entrepreneur, an enterprise may fail, but an entrepreneur either wins or learns. And keep moving and keep doing your best with your head in place. And that's about it. That's all. Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to have been here with you. I believe I'll be.
Some questions. Seems Shivaarti has dropped off due to technical issue. She should be coming back soon.
Hi, Nitin, can you hear me?
Yes, I think we lost you for a little moment. You were saying something, yeah, and then
Yeah, so So that's it. And thank you. It was a pleasure to have been here. So happy to take any questions that may follow.
Yeah. Could you also just give a little bit on the FTI which you're running, and you had some offer something for the women entrepreneurs?
Yeah, so under FTI, which is the Venture Builder Fund, we do have a heavy criteria for women to come and bring forth their ideas in terms of housing them from scratch. Being a woman founder, I do have the empathy attached to promoting this cause. So,
Okay.
yeah.
There's one question which has come from Mamta. One is she could not really understand the pivot of your company, and she would like to also know which are the best and worst pivots you have known so far.
Best and worst pivots I have?
Pivots you've known so far.
Known so far. Okay. So we pivoted from a events company to a video streaming platform, boxingage.com. The apps are available in the Android store as of now. So Mamta, you can feel free to check it, and in fact, let us know what you feel about it. And that's it. What was the other part of the question?
Any best and worst pivots you have known of?
Okay. Best and worst pivots. Well, I don't think pivots per se, but yeah, there are a lot of features that have been added to platforms for survival, such as, for instance, Flipkart, for example, in this pandemic, really got a lot into video streamings and originals. There's MMT, Make My Trip, that got into food delivery into when this event hit us. And likewise, I mean, it was not imaginable for a giant like Make My Trip to get into food delivery from hospitality. So yeah, these are few of the good things. Like hotels, for example, buy only online, offline businesses. Hotels, for example, got into deliveries, and then there were co-working spaces which were offering seminars and online sessions, etc. So a lot of things have been done around survival and pivots. What has come to our attention, and it's really nice to see people being like that.
The next is from Saurabh. What was the biggest pushback or objection you faced um, when the pivot was being discussed in your company, and how did you overcome that?
The biggest pushback is mostly capital, right? You need to see if you have the capital to sustain, because you are basically saying, I'm not shutting down, I'm going to continue. And with the investors, capitals, and your team on board, it's a huge responsibility. There's a new business plan that comes into place, because your previous business plan just goes kaput overnight, and it is when then you have to decide to move forward, taking the whole gambit of risk again with growth evidence, and there's a huge trust deficit that you need to overcome. That might even come from a lot of important stakeholders. That's it.
Anupama, I would like to know what was your marketing strategy?
Our marketing strategy for Boxing Gauge was digital. Digital is also our strength, and we went digital, and our strategy was to go viral. And with the Chinese ad bans, etc., we really rode that ride, and we went viral on the basis of being a better alternative to TikTok. And honestly, we didn't even spend a penny on that. So yeah. And there's digital. It's all online marketing as a theory.
How could you encourage yourself when you faced a lot of challenges in initial stage? Mindset, your personal.
Nitin, your voice broke. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
The question was, how could you encourage yourself when you faced a lot of challenges in initial stage? Your mindset, Shesha would like to know.
Oh well, that, as I mentioned in the slide, is your courage of conviction. It completely boils down to a single word. How convinced are you to continue in business? What is your how convinced are you? It's your courage of conviction to resurface and reface all the challenges.
And now, this is a very generic question, but Arpita likes to know which is the best funding investor for women entrepreneurs for getting the fund for startups? Who's more open to funding women entrepreneurs, as per you?
Not that I've personally picked up any capital, but from them, but I really like what Mr. Rajan Anandan does and how he does it. He's very neutral and very meritorious. There's Miss Vani Kola, and now you have FTI, that's Frontier Tech Impact Venture Builder Fund. We would like to be very meritorious in our investments and our homegrown entities. So, yeah.
Yeah, just to add on to it, we did have Anisha Singh of She Capital. She also
Yeah,
is
there's
looking at.
Anisha, yeah, this She Capital, there's Anisha.
Yeah, so
Doing a great
just to
job.
remind,
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
just to remind our audience that we also did have
Right,
Anisha from She Capital. She is actively looking at investing
right.
in the women farm
There's
business.
Anisha. She
So,
Capital is doing a great job, yes.
so if your business really has a merit in it, the investors are out there. All of them are out there. I believe,
Yeah,
Shivaarti, that's what you
if
like to
you
say.
have a meritorious system, then it's better to be gender neutral because business by design is pretty gender neutral. So, yeah.
So that also brings us to the end of the session. Thank you so much, Shivaarti, for taking your time and talking about your story.